All right, welcome into Carps Corner as we sit here and break down what was the big push of Ohio State's training camp. And as we sit here, they're going to have some more time to continue to work before school starts as it gets ramped up here in the coming weeks. Notre Dame obviously is on the porch September 3rd, so we're well within, a month of that, couple weeks out staring, that as we get into game preparation, try to figure things out. But there's still time for things to get done. But this was the big week that was just completed. And Ryan wanted to try to make it as grueling and as intense as he possibly could to help to develop that grittiness, that toughness for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And so they capped it off with a scrimmage on Saturday. And so, talk a little bit about this week, the scrimmage, what that means, the Ohio State captains, some comments that Jim Knowles has about a couple players there. There's a lot of stuff that we can ultimately get into and kind of see where everything is ultimately going. But as I sit here and look at another week of preparation, what did we get out of the last week? What ultimately happened with it? And so a couple of things you want to focus on when you get into these scrimmages in training camp. You want to try to simulate some game action. You're going to do some move the field, which means, hey, we're going to give them the ball at the 25-yard line, offense and defense. It's unscripted. We're going to move the football. Get 4 yards on first down. It's a 2nd and 6. Get 3 more yards. All right. All of a sudden you have a 3rd and 1. Maybe you get a first down, then maybe you have a penalty. It goes back to, 1st and 15. All of those different things you're going to work through the different scenarios of calling in plays, the coordinators getting used to their personnel, subbing people in and out, going from a situation that may be a 3rd and 9, all of a sudden someone jumps off sides. Now you're getting to a 3rd and 4. And maybe that means you're changing personnel groups on offense. Subsequently, you change personnel groups on defense. All of those things are going to matter. They're all going to ultimately come into play. And so the move the field situation in a scrimmage is big because it's the closest you're getting to an actual game. And you get to a 4th and 1, 4th and 2, an offensive coach. You look over at head coach Ryan Day, who's helping call the plays, Kevin Wilson, Brian Hartline, like, hey, is this a situation? Where are we at? What's the score? Are we going to go for this? The defensive coordinator's got to figure out, hey, is this a punt situation? Do we call on the special teams? Or do we sit here and go with our short yardage personnel with that? Maybe, they're going to try to throw the ball more, and that's going to be something they're going to lean into. So you have to match personnel, match like pairings. And so with all of those things, like the move the field thing is something that they wanted to do. And you want to do it with all your groups, 1st, 2nd, 3rd group, to make sure that they have the opportunity to sit there and experience real game action as you're driving the football down the field, potentially taking penalties, taking a sack, taking a loss, and what that does. So that kind of gives you the whole game. Then you want to work on scenarios, situations. You want to work on coming out. What is coming out? That means if you're backed up, all of a sudden, you get pinned back on special teams. You're inside your own 5-yard line. You have a set of plays offensively that you're thinking about. Do we take a shot over the top, try to catch them while they're trying to make sure they're stopping our run? What are our running plays going to be? Can we get a first down? We'd like to obviously get 2 to get some field position, give us some breathing room, milk some clock, flip the field. All of those different things that you work on. Defensively, you said, be aware of the play action pass down the field, someone taking a shot. How do you keep them backed up so you can give your offense a good situation? So coming out is something that's big. And for Ohio State, a team last year that struggled to run the ball at points in gotta have it situations where people knew you had to run it, would you be able to do it? We saw it, against Michigan. Point in time, 3 straight runs, really didn't do a whole lot at one point when they really needed to. And so the coming out situation, you're on your own 3, 4, 5-yard line, maybe 1. Hey, we need to run the ball and get some breathing room. Can we get 3 or 4 yards on first down? They know we're probably going to run it. We're going to line up in it. Can we pound them? And it may not be pretty. It may not be the most beautiful football you're going to see, but can we do it? That's something you have to ask yourself. And so you'll work on that, the coming out situation. Maybe work on some quick game. Can we steal a quick 6-yard out because they're overloading the box and it's one-on-one on the outside. Can we pick up a cheap 6-8 yards? All of a sudden now we're in a much better scenario. Don't want to turn the football over. Don't want to take a penalty. Don't want negative yardage plays. Those things are all true. Defensively, you don't want to jump off sides. You anticipate the hard count. Those are all things you work out in the coming out situation. Work on a variety of third down situations. And so what Ryan Day did, hey, we're going to start 3rd and 12, 3rd and 11, go 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4, do 4 to 5 plays with each group as we work down. Starts out more difficult for the offense, ends up being a little more difficult for the defense as we work through these groups of plays, giving people situations, different scenarios. And maybe we're more coverage this time. When do we get into our blitz packages? When do we have to ultimately decide to make sure we can defend against the run? Is that 3rd and 6? Is it a 3rd and 8? Is it a 3rd and 4? And so all of those different things come into play in that scenario. And that's critical because teams that can convert third downs or can stop third downs defensively, they can either elongate or shut down drives. And in doing that, you possess the ball, you have longer drives, things work better, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of positivity to it. And then the last big scenario you obviously want to work on is red zone. And that scenario, Ohio State's defense was not good in the past. Last year, they struggled mightily, gave up a lot of touchdowns. Huge difference. Teams can get in the red zone all day long. I'm going to give you drives. I don't like giving up drives, but I'll give up drives. But as we saw in the past with Ohio State, especially last year, and there's a stat with it, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but the amount of touchdowns that the Ohio State defense gave up at the red zone was astonishing. And so you can let them down there. You don't want to, but when they get down there, hold them to 3. And that comes into execution, route recognition, making sure you can stop the run. And so those are all things when you're going against Ohio State's offense, that's going to be big. And offensively on the other side, the windows are compressed, things happen faster. A yard is almost worth 2 yards inside the 20 because they're so tough to come by. Because you have to think about this. You're not defending anymore 50, 60, 80 yards of field. You're defending 20 yards plus a 10-yard end zone or 10 yards plus a 10-yard end zone. So the safeties and corners, you don't have to worry about getting beat deep as much, so you can play things slower. You can play underneath. So you got that going for you. And so working the red zone aspect, that's something that Ryan Day wanted to focus on as well. And I will say this, brief takeaways from kind of watching, the last week and change of practice. I didn't get a chance to because I had to dip out. I had to go coach my son's. Actually, I had to get my kids to a birthday party and had a lot of stuff going on Saturday. But I wanted to shake Jim Knowles' hand on Saturday after the scrimmage, just thanking him for what he has helped to do to this Ohio State defense. They're playing fast. They're playing aggressive. There was a confidence. There was a swagger about him on Saturday that, you've seen bits and pieces in practice, but when you go live, meaning full tackle to the ground situations, and there's officials out there, they're throwing flags, they're calling the penalties, and you feel like you went out and had a heck of a day, you gain that confidence. And that was huge for the defense to ultimately have. I would say the defense fared really well against one of the best offenses, if not the best in college football. And that was with, as Ryan Day talked to earlier this week, some of the top corners. Cam Brown's had some issues. Jordan Hancock's had some issues. Denzel Burke has had some issues. All these guys. So you're relying on some of the younger dudes to step up on the perimeter against Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, Julian Fleming, Jaden Ballard, all of these elite receivers. You're expecting young dudes to step up and play in a situation like this. And you need to get some love from the D line to make sure they're getting a lot of pressure. But me, being a defensive player at Ohio State, I was incredibly impressed with what I saw on Saturday. The defense came out with a cockiness, with a poise, with a swagger. They executed. They played well. Not to say they didn't give up plays, but they made a heck of a lot of them. And there is a confidence that you can see that has not been there in the past. And that goes for first group, second group, third group. There is a lot of swagger, and it feels good to be able to see it. And that's the unique thing about being a head coach in football. You want, your side of the ball to do well, but you want to make sure they're going against a great group. I know this offense is good. I've watched them have great days against this defense earlier this week, Thursday, Friday. I mean, they did a pretty good job against the defense, had some nice long plays, but defense had their day. They stepped up, they got confidence, and you want to see that. And as probably as salty as Ryan was that the offense didn't play as well as they wanted to, you have to look at that and feel like, you know what? We have a defense that I look at now that can go win us a game when we need to. And yeah, you've got CJ and he's throwing to Jackson. They're limiting some of the top end guys because you don't necessarily need to see what Jackson Smith and Jigba and CJ Stroud can do. You know that. But you want to get some of the younger guys out there and get them to work. So we'll start with the offense. A couple of guys who I noticed who I thought played really well. A couple of receivers, one older, one younger. Cameron Babb, who, just got the block O, the 0. He is he's one of my favorite guys. And I've got a chance to get to know Cam Babb pretty well because when I lift, a lot of the other team is like working out and doing things. And Cam has had his ACL torn every season, it seems like. And so he's been around a lot. He's a great kid, man, and he looks good. His ability to move through space. He's a big physical guy. And I pray for this dude. I know a lot of guys at Ohio State do too, to keep him healthy because of what he could potentially be. And he's worked so hard to get there. So we're excited. Cameron Babb had a really good day. Another guy who's a little bit younger, the Maslin Missile. Not quite Devin Smith, but he threw on the number 9, a little bit taller. He had the top end speed. I'm talking about Jaden Ballard. But this spring, he's really done a great job, or spring and fall, we've done a really great job of working on routes. His hands are much improved. He's much more fluid in and out of his breaks. And he's been able to make some big catches and contested ball catches. He's tracking the ball so much better than he was before. Made some huge catches earlier this week, and he did a really good job in the scrimmage. And I was pleasantly surprised. Catching the short range stuff, but also tracking the stuff over the top. If he can become a complete receiver for this team, I mean, they've got 6 guys that are really stinking good. His hands look good. Like I said, improved route runner. And he still has that special speed that can take him over the top. Henderson looked great. Trey looked phenomenal out there. And he's going to. He's got great ability. Offensive line looked pretty good. They've got some stuff interiorly that they're still working on to get hammered out. And Justin Fry is doing a good job. Mayan Williams looks good. Looks explosive. His top end looks legit. He's bringing the wood in a live tackle situation. You get to see what Mayan Williams is really all about and how tough he is to ultimately bring down. Had some really nice runs, really physical guy. And you don't need to see too much of him because you don't even banging up your defense. And you don't necessarily need to see him taking a massive amount of hits. But Mayan Williams is another guy who I thought fared really well. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of 1-2 him and Trey Henderson. And then also find a way to work in a guy who, when you're working with the second group a little bit, offensive line for the second group at Ohio State, young, maybe a little thin, not quite to where the D line is. So not a lot of holes. But Evan Pryor, I thought as well, showed out really well for some of the situations that I saw. And maybe he didn't have these crazy long gains and wasn't massively productive on every run. But I will look at this and try to figure out, hey, is there a hole there? How many yards are there to be had? And I thought Evan Pryor always found it, used his speed. He got in space a couple of times. You saw him make some guys miss. Looked really good. Really stinking good. So I was very high. All 3 running backs fared really well. And then Dallin Hayden as well. Number 5, young dude, showed some good speed out there with the 3s. Heck, he might be getting his black stripe removed before we know it. I thought fared really well. It was really tough. Did a good job working in because you got the top 3 guys and you wonder like, hey, how are the other guys looking? Dallin did a good job. Showed some of that juice, showed some of that top end. And I know some people were really, really excited about what he was able to do. And then the last guy who I thought played really well. And it's interesting because This is a position group that is, I feel like it's always neglected in college football. And even when you have a great one, unless you're really utilizing them and taking advantage of them, there's a lot of meat left on that bone. And that's Cade Stover. Flipping over from tight end or from tight end last year, then going to linebacker, then back to tight end this season. You can see ultimately what he's about. Number one, he's a great blocker. But what I think he's impressed people the most with this spring, and he showed it again on Saturday, is his ability to run routes. And maybe he doesn't have the elite top end speed, and maybe he's not the most fluid guy. He runs good routes, but he catches everything. And I could see him being a guy that you get involved this year with screens. He was making some guys miss after the play. And he's a dude that, as we see when we get into captains and everything else, everybody respects. And you need that dude out there that's a little bit of an ass kicker. That's tough. That everybody looks to, that knows what he's about. Cade Stover can be that position for the Ohio State Buckeyes and bring that edge, I think, up front, while also bringing something to the passing game. And he's shown me more and more every week. Like, he's one of my favorite dudes because I've watched him kind of do everything, and he just loves to play football. He just loves ball. And so that's a big deal ultimately for Cade as well. So he did a really good job. And so those are some of the guys offensively. And listen, not to say there weren't other guys that played well. The receivers, all of them. And Mecca had, some really nice plays. Marvin Harrison Jr. did some really good things. Julian Fleming, I thought, did some good stuff. Like all those guys. And Jackson, like, he had a couple, and then you put him on the shelf. The receivers always fare well. But those are some of the guys that I thought, like, okay, they showed me something that I didn't expect, or maybe was a little bit lanyap, if you will, to steal a phrase from Louisiana, meaning a little extra. They gave you a little bit extra, little extra juice right there. Pivoting and looking at the defense a little bit. And I've been harping on this for a long time, because you get in red zone, it's all about communication. Third down, it's communication. Short yardage, it's all about attitude, running, and being able to stuff the run. But Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers, great job. Both of them, I thought, performed really well. Steele, you saw them moving him around. He's in coverage. His ability to diagnose stuff looked really good. And then I saw him come off of the edge. He's out there covering a tight end, receiver in the slot. They run the ball to his side, shoots right in, stuffs the run. I'm like, man, I got excited when I saw it. I got juice because, Steele's such a nice guy, soft-spoken. For him to fire in there and you watch him just stick the running back in his tracks, that gets you juice. And watching Tommy move around, his ability to run inside out, diagnose things, they get him moving and pressures, his communication. And I know I've kind of not dogged on him, but like, he's a quiet guy, but he's the loudest dude out there. And you can start to see now with every passing day, he becomes more and more comfortable. And so he's sitting there in the scrimmage, and you can see him in the red zone, talking it out, talking this and that, getting the line lined up, making sure everybody's where they need to be, and then bringing the juice on every play to make sure that dudes are ready to go. And you can see it and you can feel it at night. His teammates are right there. And so watching him go and his ability to trigger, like, man, it's something that you just didn't see last year until the end of the season. And so we're right there now, right ultimately where we should be, filling and fitting the run really fast. And I'll throw you a little surprise. I believe number 19. I got my little roster here because guys have changed numbers 1,000 times as I try to figure out, like, oh, who's 5 now? Who's the new 29? Okay, so Denzel Burke is 5, new 29. All right, here we go. Ryan Turner playing C, like, just trying to figure all this stuff out. It's wild. But with that being said, number 19, I believe, as I sit here and look at this, Chip Trainum from Akron Hoban, the Arizona State transfer, played running back at ASU. You get some run. They're working him in. And you see him. He's got great feet. He looks to diagnose things pretty well. And he moves really well in space. So he got some run on Saturday. And I thought, handled himself accordingly, rolling in there with Steele. So if you can have him and Steele, you get Taraja as a chance to maybe go to a 3 linebacker set when you need it. And then you also have Cody Simon, who played pretty well as well. Like, there's a lot of options. I think if you can get 4 guys over 2 spots, so you can roll them and rotate them a little bit, and you're going to have guys get nicked up, It's going to be huge. So Chip trained him. His evolution and his ability to fit in this defense has come along big in a big way. Now, on the perimeter, Ryan's talked about this. They've had some guys getting nicked up. Cam, he's been battling some stuff. And he's a veteran guy, and they don't necessarily want to utilize him more than they ultimately have to. Just given my guy Cam Brown, he's been through a lot. He's had a lot of injuries. He's really good. He's got an edge. He has an attitude. You saw it last year against Michigan. Okay, so got him kind of taking less reps. Jordan Hancock, he's been battling some stuff. So it gives you a chance to see ultimately some of the young guys like J.K. Johnson, who you showed me a lot in the spring, stepping up, making plays. Believe he had an interception, looked really good, playing the ball down the field, against some guys. And then I know I talked about this last time with the safeties, but Tanner McAllister, playing that little nickel roll where he's rolling around doing some stuff. And he might not be the elite high-end 5-star athlete, but the dude is a ball player. And you can see it, man. His ability to diagnose routes. He also had a great interception on Saturday. High pointing, getting involved, staying on top of the receiver, man-to-man coverage, getting his head back. Like, he checks all the boxes. He knows what he's supposed to do. He's always going to be in position. And he had a great day. And you know what? You want to play corner? You want to play inside? You play outside? Like, he can do it all. Like, Tanner McAllister can do it all because of his desire and his ability to ultimately recognize what's going on and his knowledge of the defense. A couple guys up front I thought had a good day. I thought Zach Harrison played pretty well. Jack Sawyer played pretty well. JT Tuimoloau played really well. And then a freshman who you're going to want to keep your eye on, who just is always around the football and maybe not a guy who, when you look at and you think, wow, like he checks all the boxes with the look test and like running 40s and all this stuff. But the dude is causing fumbles. He's getting sacks. He's so tough to block. He pursues like a madman. And that's Caden Curry, the freshman out of Indiana. Really good player. And he's going to get on the field this year. I don't think you can keep him off. Based upon watching him Saturday, cause some fumbles and do some stuff. Like he's a dude, man. He is a straight dude, running, hitting, knowing what to do, great technique, high motor guy. And he is someone who you want to have ultimately on your team. Looking at the back end, Hickman and Proctor, I thought played really well. Good communication. They made plays. They were fitting in the run game, especially in the short yardage stuff. Did a good job. And one guy who I talked about a little bit before as well, Court Williams. They've got some packages where a lot of times you think you need to bring in a third linebacker, but Court Williams is so stinking big, they can sub him in for McAllister, and it gives you like that hybrid linebacker piece where he's so stout in the run game, he can be a big physical tackler. And so in short yardage stuff, coming out situations, some of the stuff that we talked about, there's going to be a lot of action, I feel like, for Corey Smith and some short yardage stuff to make sure he's there, and maybe you rotate him through otherwise. But the packages that they're putting together, for some of these guys with what they're able to do and just utilizing Court's physicality, like that's the big piece. I mean, he's a big dude that is almost built like a linebacker. When you see him, he's got the nickname Jailhouse because his stinking neck is about 19 inches around. And so he's a natural guy that you want to have fit in one of those situations. So that's big time ball. And then lastly, I'll leave you with this. Cam Martinez, who, has bounced around, play a little safety, he can play a little corner, he can do some different things, return guy, but he had another good day. Looked good. You can see him fitting in, feeling comfortable. Him and Tanner McAllister kind of oscillate back and forth, and he has a nice upside for what you expect him to be with his athleticism and his ability to move. So really, really excited about that. Now I'll get to a couple comments. I talked about Joshua Proctor, and I'll throw this up here. Jim Knowles said, sky's the limit for this kid. Could be the best in the country. And I said that last week. Jim Knowles reiterated it. You'll look at his physical abilities. You'll look at his mentality, everything that Josh Proctor possesses, his ability to hit, cover space. be in the middle of the field, come down in the box. Like, the dude can do a lot, and he can do it at a high level, and he's a physical presence. So when Jim Knowles says he can be the best in the country, it makes me feel better as far as my evaluation of him. Now, we're going to talk about this. 6 captains. And I mentioned earlier, like, Cameron Babb's going to get the block O. That's a big deal. And it's awesome for him. But then there'll be 6 captains. Cam Babb being one of them. He's going to repeat as captain. But he is joined by CJ Stroud, who's the leading vote getter. Cade Stover, also on offense. Defensive end Tyler Friday, who's battled some injuries. Tommy Eichenberg, safety Court Williams. Congratulations, gentlemen. And so let's look at this. This is when you know you have a team that values work and values toughness. Cameron Babb, what has he done on the football field since he's been in Ohio State? Not a ton. He's been hurt a lot, but everybody sees him grind every day and work to get his butt back. Do everything he can. Cade Stover, what has he done? Well, played some linebacker, played some tight end, played some defensive end, back to tight end. Everything the team has asked, he's done. Selfless, with an elite attitude all the time. Guys respect that. They respect work. They ultimately respect toughness. Tyler Friday, tough dude, hard worker. He's been around for a long time, grinded through some things, grinded through injuries. Everybody sees it. He's a quiet dude who shows up and works every single day and has battled through adversity. Court Williams, another guy. You hear Ryan Day talk about it all the time. What does he do? Lives at the Woody Hayes, always trying to rehab to stay healthy and be ready to go, works his butt off in the weight room, and loves the game. Those 4 guys, no one would say that they're overwhelming contributors to this team as far as what they've done on the field over the past couple of years. But you know why they're captains? Because they get the respect of all of their teammates. And so this isn't a popularity contest. It's not who's the best player. It's who are the guys that we want to represent us. What do we stand for? That's what we stand for. And then the other 2 guys, CJ Stroud, leading vote getter, Tommy Eichenberg, you're talking about the guys that call the huddle on the offense and defense, and those are your leaders. And so we have 6 captains. It makes sense. You got your 2 dudes on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and then you have guys who have busted their butt, work hard every day in practice, go out there and grind, and want to make Ohio State football the very best it can ultimately be. And I salute those guys. That's a heck of a job. They had a heck of a scrimmage on Saturday. I'll tell you this, I'm incredibly excited for what I think is going to be a fantastic season, because the offense is moving in the right direction, and I know that they'll get any shortcomings and issues solved and situated. And defensively, they have come miles from where they were. And now, internally with them, there's an expectation for them to be really good. And that matters a lot. So we'll keep them coming. We'll keep the updates. They'll be cruising throughout the season. Got a lot of stuff to get into, a lot of great things. We'll even get to some SEC stuff next week. But continue to like, comment, questions. I'll answer everything. Subscribe. I appreciate all the support. Continue to do a lot of stuff. You see me on the podcast with Roosters. We've got stuff on 97.1. All kinds of things are ultimately going on. So thank you for everything that we've got going, and we'll keep it rolling here as we all look forward to September 3rd. Thanks.